Hi, welcome back to Happy Apple Core Homestead. Today we are going to be pickling beets. I've already gone out to the garden and harvested just a good amount, about a basketful. I don't know how much they weigh yet, but this recipe that I'm using calls for 10 pounds. First step is to take your beets. How beautiful they are, right? And you're just gonna cut the tops off, and you can eat these. They're edible if you want to. I'm giving mine to my chickens, but you do you. So leave an inch or two of the tops on here. The purpose of leaving the tops on, we're gonna leave these on, and also the roots. We're gonna leave them on while we cook them, and it helps the beet not to bleed out all of its beautiful red juices. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get the topsies off of all of these, and then we're gonna weigh them and see how many pounds we have and whether or not we're gonna have to do 2 batches or, anyway, knowing how many pounds of beets we have will let us know how much of the ingredients that we need to pull out, how many jars we need to have sterilized and all of that, but we'll go over that as soon as I get this done. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Now that all the tops are pretty much off except for the first couple of inches, we're gonna weigh them and see how much we've got here. And I've got this little kitchen scale here, and it goes up to 11 pounds, so it'll do the trick. Okay, this is just over 3 pounds, so I'm just gonna take them out because I'm full. Okay, and this is almost 3 pounds. So we're at about 6 pounds of beets. And I'm wondering if I should, I should stop fussing with my vegetables. I'm wondering if I should go pick a little bit more or just work with this, because I like to use all of the cooking liquid when I make a batch. So maybe I'll pop out and see if I have about 4 more pounds of beets. I don't know if I do or not, but I'm gonna go outside and see if I do, and then I'll meet you back here for the next step. Well, I popped outside and I harvested a few more, and I was able to come up with almost 3 pounds. So we're at about 9 pounds, and I'm pretty happy with that, and I'll feel as though I'm not wasting, any of my cooking liquid. And yes, you can cut the recipe in half if you only have 3 or 4 or 5 pounds of beets, but I knew I had more out there, so I just wanted to get as close as possible. One thing that drives me crazy though is when I harvest way over the amount that I have ingredients for whatever recipe that I'm planning on. So I'd rather be under and have to pop out again than have more than what I need, especially because it's late in the day and I do not want to be up canning until 1 a.m. That's just, maybe you like that, but I'm not into that. So what we're gonna do now is take these over to the sink. I've got this cute little, vegetable scrubber I like to use for both potatoes and the beets. We're just gonna clean them off really nice. And remember, you're gonna leave the tops on here, the 1 to 2 inches, and leave the roots on as well. Then grab a big, tall pan, whatever your biggest pan is. And then we're gonna throw all of the beets in here. We're gonna cover them up with water, bring it to a boil, and just let it boil for about 25 to 30 minutes until the beets are just soft, like not super soft, but soft enough that you could, like a knife would like slice through it. And some people will actually do it in batches, like their bigger beets they'll put in first, and then later they'll put in, you know, the little tiny beets, just so that they cook a little bit more evenly. And I may do that. I don't know, kind of depends. It's hard to get them all in here with their tops and all of that, so I'll probably start with the bigger beets and then do my second round of boiling with the smaller beets. And I have 2 burners available, so I might actually put 2 pots on the stove and do them all at the same time. After we get these all boiled, we're gonna cool them down, and I'll show you what we do next. Be back. Well, it took me an hour to scrub up our 9 pounds of beets. Yay! Highly recommend that, unless you love the sound of silence, that while you're doing your 1 hour of scrubbing your beets, that you throw on a podcast that you like, or your favorite show, or whatever. I have 2 pots back here. The one in the back has the small beets in it, and the one in the front has the large beets. And I'll just keep an eye on them and take them off the heat when they're done. So you want to cook them, right? But not until they're mushy. You just want to cook them until they're done but firm. And I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my workspace here while these are boiling, and while they're cooling off, I have all of these lids that need to be, we'll only be using 16 of them today, but I'm gonna be doing carrots next. Another day though, not today. Back here behind me, where it's all covered up in towels, those are my sanitized jars and rings. They went through the dishwasher, and the reason I cover them like that is just so that nothing that I'm cooking, or a fly, or a bat, yes, a bat, so nothing can contaminate them. Woo! Oops. Okay, I'm gonna go get those on the boil and wash my lids. Okay. I will see you back when those are done. Okay? Bye. Hi. The little beets in the back there, they're done. I'm gonna strain them and get some ice cubes in there to help cool them off. And then we'll check the bigger beets. They're gonna take a couple minutes longer than the others. I don't know if you all have one of these, but they're a fun little tool. They clip onto the edge of the pan so that the water can pour right out. It's like totally an unnecessary kitchen item, but I really enjoy it, and it makes you know, working in the kitchen easier. So there you go. See? Fun. Hi. These are all cooled off, and right now where I'm at, it's 5 p.m. so we've been working on this most of the day from harvest to this point. And I really want to encourage you that it does take some time with the washing and the scrubbing and the chopping and all of that. The canning process itself is really not that long and not that difficult, but because I have a few other things that I need to harvest. If I don't harvest it today, then tomorrow they will be overgrown. What I'm gonna do is take these beautiful beets that are nice and cooled off. I have a slotted spoon here, and I'm gonna transfer them into this bowl and put them into the refrigerator. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to show you how I trim these and peel them and cut them in preparation for the canning process. Of course, I'll also go over the ingredients, which I have back there, and we'll do the canning process together. Okay, I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'll see you back in the morning. we're back. All of these beets have been cooked and they've been cooled off, so now it's time to remove the roots and the stems. So I just head and tail them, and then the skins peel right off. Just like that. And then some people like to slice them. I tend to do them a little bit more chunky like this, and kind of, well, maybe not you, I like to have them to be all about the same size, and since I know that this is one of my smaller ones, this is about the size, you know, bite size. And into the bowl they go. See, that skin just slips right off, and this is a tiny little beet, so it's going to stay whole. That's all there is to getting the roots and the stems and the skin off. I'm gonna tackle this big giant bowl and I'll see you when I'm done. They're all cut up. See, look how pretty. Ah, I hope you can see that. Got a nice big full bowl. These are all of the, you know, stems and skins and whatnot, and I'm gonna go and take those out to the chickens so they can have a little snack. Just keep in mind, if you give any kind of beets to your chickens, you might notice some of the color coming out from behind. And I just don't want you to get scared if you see that. They're not bleeding out. It's just the color comes out, you know, from the behind. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these in the fridge, and I'm gonna meet you back over here because it's time to make the cooking liquid. So excited, we're in the home stretch, you guys. We are now ready to get the canner set up and make the cooking liquid and finally get the jars filled and canned. So I'm gonna bring my my pressure canner over, even though we are not pressure canning the beets. Okay, when you're gonna use your pressure canner as a water bath canner, you wanna do a couple of things. If you have a removable weight, take that off. And this plug here, this is the pressure release, and you just want to pop that out. Just like that. You can take the gauge off if you want to, or you can leave it on. I'm just going to leave mine on. It doesn't matter either way. Set these aside. Okay, so before we get started making the cooking liquid that goes into the jars with the beets, we want to get the canner on the stove and we're going to fill it halfway. Make sure that you're using your rack. Just get that in here. And it's important, this might look like I'm being ridiculous over here, it's important that the canner's facing the right direction, because the lid only closes on the one side, so you have to just set it on, and if it's backwards, then your steam is going to be coming up in your face. So you want this pressure release valve back here to be in the back so that it's not venting toward your face. All right, we're gonna get this filled up halfway with water. Plain tap water's fine. Doesn't have to be warm or cold. Just fill it halfway. This is gonna take a minute. The canner is now half full of water, and it's time to go ahead and make the cooking liquid. Turn on your burner. The reason why we do this first is it takes a long time to heat up this amount of water. So might as well just get started now And I crank it up on high. It, like I said, this is like this full of water. So, yeah, we want it hot but not boiling. Okay, cooking liquid. I use apple cider vinegar for this recipe, and we're gonna put in 6 cups. A couple other tools that I have out here. This is not only a lid lifter, it's got a magnet on the back here, but I use it to remove bubbles from the jars, and I'll show you what that looks like. Funnels are helpful for just keeping spills down, and this is a jar lifter here so that we do not burn our hands. Hopefully this pan is going to be big enough. I'm feeling a little nervous here. Okay, there's our 6 cups of apple cider vinegar. Then we're going to put in 3 cups of water. And a cup of honey. Typically I would use honey that I harvested from my beehives, but I haven't harvested any this year, so store-bought it is. Alright, now we've got to get the spices together. I'm just going to start warming this up on this back burner here while we get the spices in their spice bag ready. And I'm really just putting this on kind of a medium-low. In general, this is going to take hardly any time at all to cook. We're going to bring it up, once the spices are in, we're going to bring it up to a boil and let it boil for 5 minutes. Okay, I'll be back in a second with the spices. Alright, now for the spices. I don't do anything super fancy. I don't put onions in my beets. I don't do, you know. But trust me, these beets are really good. My sister says they're the best she's ever had. So, believe her. Okay, so 1 large cinnamon stick. Some cheesecloth here. I should invest in some spice bags. And 12 cloves. Okay, then we're just gonna tie these up. Make it a little bit easier to get the liquid out without having to strain these. just throw them in there. Like, okay. Without the little stringies. Hold on a second here. Wet down the cheesecloth first. Oh, I always forget that. Wet the cheesecloth first, everybody. And then stick it in there. You don't want your cheesecloth to catch fire, so, you know, keep it off the burner. Make sure the spices are in the cooking liquid. All right, that's it. I'm gonna throw a lid on this. Maybe, maybe not. Don't have to. And we're just gonna let it heat up till it reaches a boil, and then leave it on for 5 minutes. After it gets up to temperature, I'll be right back with you. And we're back. The cooking liquid has boiled for its 5 minutes. The canner is nice and toasty hot. I have a preset timer to 30 minutes, which is how long we'll be canning these beets. I have even taken the beets out to bring them up to room temperature. I have all of my tools and equipment ready to go. I have a water-soaked paper towel here that we'll be using to clean the rims. Some people use vinegar for that. Either way is fine. I want to talk to you just for a quick second about a canning rule of thumb, which is hot jars, hot food, hot canner versus cold jars, cold food, cold canner. I'm doing it a little bit differently today, so I want you to understand that it is important, if you want to avoid the possibility of thermal shock to your jars, that you follow those rules of thumb. So although this recipe has been tried and true and it is tested and it is absolutely safe, I do recommend that instead of following me with my room temperature jars, which I am going to be using today, and my room temperature food and hot liquid, hot canner, that is not the standard rule of thumb. So if you want to be 100% like, I don't want my jars to even potentially break, I would suggest that you just go ahead and heat up your jars, and you can do that on the stove in some water if you want to. This is the way that I choose to do it. I have never had any thermal shock issues, but then again, I'm not using jars that might be, you know, very old or very, very used. This happens to be a new pack of jars, and if I was using some vintage jars or jars that I've used multiple years in a row, I would probably rethink this. So just keep that in mind as you're watching me, because I know that some of you will ask that question. And before we get started, I do want to, a lot of people ask me about using honey. I use honey in my canning because I digest it better. When you heat up honey in any canning process, you are going to lose those special enzymes that you get from raw honey. Now, it is still a sweetener. Even if it's heated, it tastes delicious, it's wonderful, it's amazing. It's not as sweet or not the same type of sweetness as table sugar, and so you're just gonna have to experiment with what you like. All right, I think it's time for us to get started, so I'm gonna go ahead and wash my hands, grab a spoon for these, and we're gonna go ahead and fill these jars. One more thing I want to address before we dive into this is you may have noticed that I hand washed my lids, and you do not see them sitting here in a pot of boiling water, which was the standard, and it is no longer the standard that you have to keep your lids hot or boiling, or your rings, as long as you're processing your food for 10 minutes or longer. That will kill any, bacteria or, whatever might be getting on them between, the time you wash them and the time that you put them on your jars. So if you're processing longer than 10 minutes, hand wash them and just make sure you don't, touch them or get them all funky in between. So let's get started. This is still really hot. I'm just gonna unfurl my spice bag here. I'm we'll get this out of the way. I'm not sure from this angle if you can see how lovely this color is, and oh my gosh, it smells so good. Okay, so we're gonna grab this. These jars have been sterilized. And we're going to fill the jar up with the beets. So if I was doing this in the middle of winter and it was really cold in my house, I would probably still heat up my jars, but it's actually really hot in my house. And so I'm not too worried about it. So you want to fill your jars to the top, but you don't want to like shove them in and pack them like too tight. So we're gonna do, and maybe I'm gonna take this guy out actually. So the head space for this recipe is 1/2 inch. And 1/2 inch is, if you see about where this, these are the rings, the little rims, you know, for the, you know, the rings to go on. So right about here is about 1/2 inch. So we're gonna grab our funnel. And I'm using wide mouth jars. You can use any kind that you want. And we're gonna go ahead and fill this up. I do it a little bit slow again because I'm using room temperature jars. And I'm just gonna be gentle with this. I'm gonna fill it up to about that second ring. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then you're gonna take your lid lifter / bubble remover and just put it into the jar and all the way down to the bottom and push toward the center. That will remove the air bubbles in the jar. And I just kind of push things down. I don't think that's necessary, but I do it. And then you'll grab your wet paper towel and you will clean the rim. Now this is really important. And as you can see, there is material on that surface. And if you leave it there, there's a potential that your jar is not going to seal properly. And kind of like, what's the point of this 2-day or all-day process if you're just going to destroy your food? And that does go back to the whole point of hot jars, hot food, hot canner. If you want to make sure that you don't lose your food, follow these instructions to the T. Now, we have parents and great-grandparents that have been canning for generations, and we should really use that knowledge to our advantage. So I have my lid here, and now you notice I am not touching anything with my hands. I am keeping this as sanitary as possible, and I'm doing one jar at a time. Here's my ring, and you just put that right on there. Don't mind that, that means nothing, that little pop that you just heard. And you're just gonna do finger tight, okay? Not crazy reefing it down, don't do that, just finger tight. Now because I'm using my pressure canner instead of a typical water bath canner has a cute little tray where you can set your jars right on, I'm actually going to just set that aside and I'm gonna fill these all up really quick. The reason I'm not putting it into the canner right now is because I don't want the half of the beets to you know, be overcooked and then some of them done right. there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiny little, and 6 tiny little beet pieces. 5, let me see. Oh, can I shake a little more room in here? The leftovers will be my snack. Okay, that looks good. And we have plenty of cooking liquid left. Alright, that's the last jar. My canner can only fit in 8 jars. And now we're going to go ahead and get them into the canner. I have probably enough cooking liquid to do a whole nother 8 jars. So I'm just going to make a note on my recipe book so that I understand. You know, it's always good to, every time you can something, to make notes. So I did 9 pounds of beets. I did a 10-pound recipe of cooking liquid, but yet I didn't need it all. And I wonder too, I put a lid on it this time. You can do it either way, lid on or lid off, but I'm wondering if I'm left with a lot more liquid because I chose to put the lid on. And I'm gonna make all of those notes in my recipe book over here. Let's get these in the canner. The jar lifter is important so that we are not sticking our hands in hot water. And you're just going to put them in nice and slowly and gently. And many of you are noticing that I'm on a glass top cooker here. And I did check both with my canner manufacturer and my stove manufacturer to make sure that everything was rated to work on a glass top, and it is. Okay, these look good. And I'll take you over here and show you what it looks like on the inside. You want the water to be 1 to 2 inches above the top of your jars. And then we'll put the lid on. And we're going to crank this heat up to high. Back to business. Now that I've got a snack, this has to get to a full rolling boil. Not the little simmering, and you might have to take the lid off to check. A lot easier if you're using a standard kettle. It has to be at a full rolling boil, and then you start your timer. Do not start your timer before it is at a full rolling boil. In addition to that, it has to stay at a full rolling boil for the entire 30 minutes in order to ensure the safety of your food. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and I will see you back here after 30 minutes. This has been heating up for quite some time, so I'm just going to take this lid off and see if it's at a full rolling boil yet. So excited! By the way, if you love my hot pads, my friend Sharon made them, and I can hook you up. Let me know. Always open the lid away from yourself. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Maybe I'll show you really quick. Oh yeah, that's what a full rolling boil looks like. So we're gonna get this lid back on and start that timer. See you back in 30 minutes. Now we're truly in the final stretch, everybody. This timer has gone off. It's been 30 minutes. It's been at a full rolling boil the entire time. And I don't know if I mentioned this before. If you are above 1,000 feet above sea level, you will need to increase your time. So make sure you check your recipe and your altitude to make sure that you're processing for the right amount of time. I'm like 450 feet above sea level, so yeah, I'm like at the bottom of the barrel. Anyway, this is what you do after your timer goes off. Get your handy dandy mitts, and you're gonna take your canner off of the burner. It's gonna be heavy, y'all. If you have a glass top stove, do not scrape it. If you can't lift your full canner, grab a kid or a partner or a neighbor if you have to, but do not scrape it. You will regret that. Okay, now as soon as you have turned your heat off, you have moved your canner, you're gonna open the lid, venting up and away from your face. And watch for the condensation. You're gonna set this aside. You're gonna get your timer. You are not, I repeat, you are not going to go to the grocery store or go take a shower or have a cigarette or whatever it is you think you do on your off time. You're gonna set your timer for 5 minutes. When the 5 minutes is up, you're going to take your jar lifter and you're going to move your jars to your counter space. Okay, grab your mitts. The 5-minute timer is up. Okay, I'm gonna take my canner from here to there. It's really heavy. You might not want to do this at home unless you have a partner or unless you do a lot of hoeing and raw weightlifting or something. I don't know. Anyway, we're gonna move this big old canner over here. Don't feel obligated to move it to another countertop. You can do that over there. Anyways, here we go. We've got this nice, beautiful thing that my sister-in-law made for me. Thank you, love you. And we're just gonna take our jars out now. Obviously, you don't want to stick your hands into a very hot canner, so use your jar lifter. Okay, a lot of people are inclined to like tip this to get the water off the top. Don't do that. Just straight up, water and all. If there's water on there, don't worry about it. It's gonna go away. You can hear them already popping. That's good news, everybody. They are sealing right up. It's the sound of music right there. If you're a canner, you know. Now that you've got all your jars onto your little handy dandy mat, you're hearing the pings, you know that they're sealing, feeling good about this, we're not gonna touch them, okay? I know it's exciting, you wanna touch them, you wanna look at them. No, you're just gonna leave them alone. So it is 5 o'clock right now, p.m., and I'm not even going to look at these until tomorrow at about 5 o'clock, where we're gonna take the rings off, we're gonna wipe everything down, we're gonna check the seals, put dates and labels on them and all that fancy stuff. But we'll go ahead and do that tomorrow. So I will see you again in 24 hours. Okay everybody, I'm super excited. These are all cooled off and now we just have to put the finishing touches on the jars. First things first though, let's see if all of these sealed. So we'll take the rings off. We've left them on until they're completely cool. So excited. Okay, all right, so to check, obviously you can push down and see, you know, do they make any kind of like bumping sounds or, you know, like clicking sounds, I guess. None of these are, but to go one step further, we'll just use our fingers and just lift up and see if there's any give in these lids. So I'm just gently pulling, not gently, like, I'm not reefing on it, because some of you out there are strong enough to literally like open jars just with your fingers. I'm not using my full strength, but I am using a good amount of pressure to. Okay, none of them are unsealed. All 8 of them have sealed perfectly. They're beautiful. There is no siphoning at all that I can see. Everything just looks really good. And so with that said, we're gonna put the rings away. I'm not gonna store them with the rings on. And very important, we're gonna put the date on each one of these jars. So I did these yesterday. That was the 11th. Okay, now they all have their dates on there. Before you put your labels on, you want to take a wet paper towel and just clean off all of these areas, just in case there was any siphoning, if there was any food or anything that was on the outside of the jar. And it might not look like there's anything on there, but really it's a good idea, because you know, how sad would it be, you put these in and you have a hankering for pickled beets and you go in there and it's all moldy, and then you're like, oh, it's still sealed but the jar looks gnarly. Anyway, this just keeps them looking beautiful and brand new right up until you want to open them. Okay, now that the jars are all clean, I'm gonna go grab some labels. We'll put a label on here. I think, you know, for those of us who just did this process, it's pretty self-explanatory what it is, but some of you out there, including me, we can tons of different things, different flavors, and it's just really nice to know what you're getting when you're putting your hand in your pantry. And also too, if you are giving these to family members, they like to know what they're getting, right? So I'm gonna go grab those and then we're gonna be done. I like to use these dissolvable labels. They're so nice because, you know, when you're getting ready to clean your jar, you just run it under water and away they go. And, you know, they're pretty, and you can put them on the front of your jar so that when they're, you know, stacked in your pantry, you can see. I have put labels on the lids before, and I just like to, you know, look in my pantry and just see those labels and have it all nice and organized in that way. So all you have to do is write down what's in it. So these are organic pickled beets. And I'm gonna put on that they're made with honey. And stick it right on there, just like that, and you're done. And that is canning pickled beets. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching it. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, suggestions. I respond to every single comment, I promise you that. And I just want you to know I appreciate you so much. And yeah, I'm gonna head out to the garden right now. I'm going to harvest the garlic. It is time. I cannot wait another day. And I'm also gonna harvest some carrots because we're gonna pressure can the carrots, and that I think will be the next video, unless I get in there and the voles have eaten like most of my crop, which hopefully that did not happen, but we're about to find out. Anyway, happy canning everybody. Bye.